The man scraped the mold off a cookie with a small knife, then spread some expired caviar on top, and without hesitation, put it straight into his mouth. This wasn't some kind of luxury snack, it was because he was trapped inside a mansion. The man, once known for pulling off risky heists, had made a mistake during this job. He entered the wrong code, and the smart security system locked him inside. To make matters worse, he had forgotten to bring his phone. At first, he thought of smashing a window to escape, but the glass turned out to be bulletproof. To add to his misfortune, the system malfunctioned and the air conditioning started blowing hot air in the middle of summer. Left with no choice, he made do with whatever food scraps he could find. The next morning, he heard the roar of a helicopter outside, but sadly, it didn't notice him. Desperate, he picked up the landline to call for help, only to realize there was no signal. Just as he was sinking into despair, he spotted a skylight above his head. Maybe this was his only way out. He dragged over every piece of furniture he could find to build height, tearing cloth strips from chairs and tying the furniture together tightly. He worked until evening and finally built a makeshift platform. But when he climbed to the very top, he was devastated to discover that the skylight was also bulletproof. In frustration, he lifted a priceless vase and smashed it to the ground. Picking through the shards, he wrapped 2 suitable pieces in cloth strips and crafted a pair of crude protective glasses. Then he climbed back up onto his platform and began hammering and chiseling at the ceiling with a hammer and an iron rod. The reason he was stuck here in the first place was that during his attempt to make the mansion more transparent, he had triggered the security system, sealing himself inside. That skylight was his only chance at escape. But what he didn't expect was that the concrete around it contained heavy expansion bolts. His bare hands couldn't possibly turn them. Not willing to give up, he pried open the frame with his knife and discovered there were 12 bolts in total. He searched the entire house but couldn't find a single wrench. Defeated, he slumped onto the sofa. But the will to survive pushed him back on his feet. He broke a chair with one kick, carved a groove into a wooden board with his knife, and fashioned a crude wrench. Yet the moment he put pressure on it, the board snapped in half. So, he made do with what he had. He pulled out some fish, chopped it into minced meat with a kitchen knife, and rolled it into small balls. It tasted awful, but at least it filled his stomach. The next morning, he crafted another makeshift wrench. Learning from his mistakes, this time he worked carefully. Into his joy, he successfully loosened the first bolt. Hope sparked inside him again. But by the time he got to the 4th bolt, hunger and thirst overwhelmed him. To survive, he pried open a storage room using a metal statue. Inside, he found dog food and a few cans. He even dropped to the ground, greedily drinking water straight from a bottle. At last, both food and water were no longer a problem. Re-energized, he worked harder on loosening the bolts. But when he finally removed the 9th one, disaster struck. He had been trapped in the mansion for 5 days, living on expired dog food and tap water from the plant sprinklers. He built a tall platform to reach the skylight and worked day after day, unbolting the glass. But just as he finished the 9th bolt, his foot slipped. He tumbled off the platform. His right leg was cut, and worse, a bone injury left him unable to move freely. He quickly splinted his leg with wooden boards, but he knew escaping had just become far more difficult. Still, fate gave him one last chance. He noticed a smoke detector above the kitchen. A bold idea formed in his mind. He tore newspapers into strips, then used a magnifying glass to focus sunlight and ignite them. With the flames, he lit a makeshift torch and held it beneath the detector. The alarm blared. Suddenly, torrents of water poured from the ceiling. Watching the flood, you can't help but think, why didn't he try this earlier? He thought the sprinkler system might trigger an emergency escape mode. But to his disappointment, the heavy doors stayed locked. When the water finally stopped, the entire house was flooded. He stared at the scene, deep in thought. Time passed. 2 months later, heavy snow blanketed the world outside. Before his food ran out, he finally loosened all 12 bolts and removed the reinforced glass blocking his exit. Before leaving, he scribbled a few lines on the wall, apologizing for the damage he caused and vowing never to steal again. With great effort, he climbed onto the platform one last time and escaped from the place that had held him captive for more than 2 months. And this story reminds us, never forget to bring your phone when you head out.